My name is Adam, I'm 31, and if there's one thing I've learned in the past year, it's that nothing peels the mask off a person faster than a wedding, especially when it's your younger brother's wedding, and you're suddenly labeled the family embarrassment. I wasn't always the black sheep. Growing up, I was the dependable one. I fixed the Wi-Fi, mowed the lawn without being asked, handled dad's endless tax questions, and even took a gap year after college to help out when mom had surgery. I was the glue, the one they leaned on. But somewhere along the line, all that became expected. Routine. Invisible. And when Mark, my golden child little brother, got engaged to Natalie, a girl whose idea of elegance was Instagram followers and fake laughter, everything shifted. At first, I was genuinely happy for them. Mark and I used to be close, and I figured I'd be helping out like always. When he asked me to put down a deposit on the catering, a hefty one, I might add, I didn't even hesitate. You'll get it back, he promised. Mom and Dad just need to balance some stuff this month. I nodded, told him it was no big deal. I meant it. But then, the call stopped. The planning meetings moved to group chats I wasn't invited to. The updates trickled down to silence. I'd hear things secondhand from my cousin Sam or Aunt Tricia, like I was a distant relative and not, Mark's brother. Still, I tried to stay above it. I told myself weddings are stressful and maybe they were just busy. But the real turning point came on a quiet Wednesday afternoon when I swung by my parents' house to drop off a bottle of their favorite drink, just a small gesture, something I did now and then. Mom opened the door, barely glancing at me. Her eyes flicked to the bottle. "What's this for?" "I figured you guys could use it," I said. "For the big day." Celebratory vibes. She let out a short, dry laugh that didn't even reach her eyes. "Don't even think about coming to the wedding," she snapped, arms folded like she was bracing for me to argue. "You'll just ruin the photos. Mark deserves a classier crowd." The words landed like a slap. I blinked, waiting for the punchline. "Wait, what?" Her lips curled into something between pity and disdain. "You know how you are, Adam. Always brooding. Always awkward. It's not personal. It's just that Natalie has a vision, and we can't afford distractions. Honestly, you'll be more comfortable staying home." I nodded, very slowly, as if the movement might hold back the sting rising in my throat. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself or ask why. I just nodded, turned around, walked back to my car, and sat there with the bottle sweating in my passenger seat like it knew it had shown up to the wrong house. That night, I pulled up the contract and canceled the catering deposit I'd paid, close to $4,000. They hadn't even paid me back, not a cent. I forwarded the refund notice to Mom's email with a subject line that just read, "Updated plans." I didn't write anything in the body of the message. That was just the beginning. What no one knew, what they still don't know, is that the massive estate they've been bragging about nonstop for the past month. The picturesque mansion with the sprawling garden and old-world charm? Yeah, I'm the one who leased it. See, back when Mark first got engaged, I wanted to do something nice. So I reached out to an old college friend who manages a historic property just outside the city. It wasn't on Airbnb or the usual wedding venues. This place was a hidden gem, the kind of place that made people gasp when they drove up the long gravel driveway and saw ivy crawling up the stone facade. I booked it under my name, thinking I'd surprise them. It was meant to be a gift, back before things got ugly. But when things started turning sour, I didn't cancel it. I just changed the terms. I kept the lease. I watched as Natalie posted blurry Pinterest collages captioned, "Our dream venue smiling face with art eyes, with my property in the background." I listened to my parents rave about how the universe must be smiling down on Mark for scoring such an exclusive place. They didn't ask how it got booked. They didn't ask who secured it. They just assumed, as always, that the world would bend to their will because it always had. Meanwhile, I sat back and smiled. Natalie started planning everything around that mansion. She hired a photographer based on the lighting in the garden. She ordered custom signs with the estate's name, printed in gold foil. She even uploaded a video to her gushing about manifesting dreams into reality, as if the universe had hand-delivered her some fairy tale life. Every piece of her aesthetic revolved around that place. And I just waited. It wasn't about being petty at first. It wasn't about revenge. But the more I listened to the offhand comments from relatives, the whispered jokes about how I never quite fit in, the dismissive way Mark told someone at brunch, "Adam's just not wedding material, the more I realized I wasn't just being excluded. I was being erased. Natalie's parents sent out an RSVP list last week, and guess whose name wasn't on it? My cousin sent me a screenshot with the caption, What's going on? I didn't reply. Instead, I logged into the property portal that night and reviewed the terms of the lease. You see, I hadn't leased it to them. I'd leased it for a weekend retreat, when I was fully within my rights to repurpose however I wanted. There was no official wedding booking, no official coordination with vendors. And because Natalie had assumed it was all locked and under their name, they never double-checked. They were planning a wedding at a venue they didn't even control. And the clock was ticking. I watched quietly as they built their fantasy on borrowed time. As they sent out invitations with the mansion's address printed in calligraphy. As they posted countdowns and rehearsal dinner details. Meanwhile, I started making my own arrangements. Quietly. Strategically. I didn't want to ruin the wedding. I wanted them to realize what they had done. That's when things took an even more interesting turn. Last Thursday, I ran into Natalie's sister, Harper, at a bookstore of all places. She didn't recognize me at first, probably because she hadn't seen me since the engagement party, where I was stationed by the buffet table like a hired caterer. But when she finally did a double take, she smiled politely and said, "Oh, Adam, right? You're Mark's cousin?" I corrected her. "Brother." Her smile flickered. "Right. Sorry." We chatted small talk, and she casually mentioned that the florist had a panic attack because she thought she didn't have venue access confirmation yet. "Isn't that funny?" Harper laughed. "She thought you had to show a lease or something. Like anyone could really lose the venue at this point." I just smiled. And that's when the idea truly crystallized. Not just letting them get burned by their own arrogance, but flipping the entire situation on its head. And that, my friend, is where things start to get fun. The thing about revenge, real, satisfying revenge, is that it takes patience. You can't just strike when you're angry, because that's messy. It makes noise. It gives them a chance to react. But when you strike quietly, at the exact moment they think they've won, it lands like thunder. The wedding was 3 weeks away, and the mansion was still fully under my name. No contracts had been transferred, no legal claims filed, nothing. And thanks to Natalie's obsession with aesthetics over logistics, her entire wedding, the planner, the seating arrangements, the floral arches, the imported pianist from Vienna, hinged on a venue that, technically, didn't exist in her world beyond her Pinterest board. I started planning my own weekend getaway. Nothing flashy, just enough to make it clear that this was my booking. I invited 5 close friends from college who'd stuck by me when my own family turned cold. I didn't tell them everything, just that I was reclaiming a weekend that had been taken from me. They were all in. Meanwhile, I kept watching the wedding planning unfold from the sidelines. Natalie posted an Instagram story of her walking the estate gardens, which she only accessed during an open tour weekend, captioned, "Can't wait to say, I do right here. Manifestation is real." My phone buzzed with DMs from acquaintances who were stunned I wasn't invited. One girl from high school messaged, "Didn't you pay for the caterer? And you're not even in the wedding party? That's wild." I didn't answer. I was done explaining myself to people who only listen long enough to file my pain under awkward family drama. But that week, things started getting weird. First came the frantic call from Dad, the first time he'd contacted me in months. "Hey, Adam," he said, voice tight. "Listen, small thing, totally minor, but there's some confusion with the venue paperwork. Natalie's planner says the estate still lists your name? Probably a clerical error. You mind forwarding them the confirmation under Mark's name so they can clear it up?" There was a pause long enough for me to hear the ceiling fan in his office humming in the background. "Dad," I said calmly, "there is no confirmation under Mark's name. The lease is in my name. Has been since last fall." Silence. Then, "Well, yeah, but that's just temporary, right? You were always going to transfer it." "No," I said flatly. "I booked it for me. I just never told anyone." He chuckled, like I'd told a bad joke. "Come on, Adam. This is your brother's wedding. Don't be petty." I let that sink in before replying. Petty was when Mom uninvited me because I might ruin the photos. This is just follow-through." He raised his voice then, said something about guilt and not everything being about me, but I'd already stopped listening. I hung up, turned off my phone, and booked a massage for the following weekend. By now, cracks were forming fast. Harper messaged me next. "Hey, weird question, are you hosting something at the estate that weekend?" I only asked because our decorator tried to drop off a few things and said they were turned away. I waited 2 hours before replying. "Yup, that's my weekend. Hope your decorator finds another castle." She left me on read. 3 days before the wedding, I got a knock at my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and definitely not Mark. He looked hollow. Not the confident, condescending version of him I'd seen at every family event the past year. He was pale, sweating slightly, and holding a wedding binder like it was going to explode in his hands. "Can we talk?" he said, without meeting my eyes. I let him in, partly out of curiosity, partly because I wanted to see how far this charade had crumbled. He sat on my couch, fingers twitching against the binder. "Okay, look," he said. "We messed up. I messed up. Natalie assumed Mom and Dad handled the venue, and they didn't." He flinched. I know now. But you can't just keep it. What are we supposed to do? Hundreds of people are coming. There's nowhere else. Everything's scheduled." I sat across from him and said nothing. Just waited. He finally broke the silence. "Please, man. I'll pay you back the catering deposit. Double it. Just don't do this." I tilted my head. "When you asked me to front the deposit, you called me Reliable Adam. Remember that?" He nodded weakly. "And when Natalie told the family I wasn't welcome because I'd ruined the photos, you said nothing." His lips parted, but no sound came out. I leaned in slightly. "So help me understand. What exactly do I owe you?" Mark didn't answer. He just sat there, eyes darting, throat tightening. He looked like a man trying to swallow a sentence that might shatter him. Eventually, he muttered, "You were supposed to be better than this." I smiled. Not kindly, not cruelly, just knowingly. I was. He left without saying goodbye. I didn't follow him. That night, Mom texted me. A single sentence. "You've made your point. Now do the right thing." I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it without replying. The next day, I checked into the estate with my 5 friends, popped open a bottle of champagne on the back patio, and watched the sunset over the garden Natalie thought would be hers. But the real storm, the meltdown, the scramble, the public unraveling that was still to come. The morning of what was supposed to be their big day, the estate was calm. Too calm. Birds chirped lazily in the trees, the breeze rustled the ivy along the walls, and inside, my friends and I were sipping coffee on the terrace like we were royalty on holiday. The mansion staff, whom I'd confirmed for full weekend service, had just finished laying out a breakfast spread that would make a resort blush. I'd told them in advance to treat us like VIPs, because frankly, we were. The others didn't know the full scope of what I'd done yet. They knew something was up, but I'd promised to explain after brunch. For now, they were content soaking in the absurd luxury while Natalie and her wedding planner, I assumed, were sweating bullets. I had timed everything with precision. See, the estate was behind a wrought iron gate with strict access rules. No vendor could come in without prior clearance. I'd removed any pending names from the guest list that didn't match my party, including Natalie Benson, Mark Benson, and Dream Events Wedding Design. I wanted the staff to know exactly who this place belonged to for the weekend. By noon, my phone started buzzing. First, it was a call from an unknown number. Then another. Then a flurry of texts from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. "Adam, where are you? There's something seriously wrong with the venue. Please call back. Natalie's having a meltdown and Mark won't stop yelling at the planner." "Is this true? You rented the mansion for the weekend?" "Mom's crying. She says you're trying to destroy the family." I turned the volume off and let it buzz. That's when the call from Aunt Tricia came in. She never calls unless it's serious. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Adam," she breathed into the phone, already frantic. "Where are you?" "They're locked out of the property. Nobody can get in. The guests are already arriving. It's a disaster. The owner isn't answering and the gate staff are saying the name on the lease is yours." "Is that true?" I took a slow sip of my coffee. "Yup, that's correct." There was a pause on the other end. "Why?" I shrugged, even though she couldn't see me. "You'll have to ask your sister. I wasn't invited, remember?" Trisha's voice dropped to a whisper, like she didn't want anyone near her to hear what she said next. "Okay. I know what they did was hurtful. But this? Adam, this is nuclear. Natalie's mother is threatening to sue everyone, Mark's sobbing, and your mom just fainted." I didn't even flinch. I was called an embarrassment, Trish. My own mother said I'd ruined the photos. And Mark? He never defended me. Not once. They thought they could use me for money and connections, then cut me out when I wasn't aesthetic enough for the album. But couldn't you have just let it go? I finally looked at my phone. 26 missed calls. A dozen messages. Panic from every direction. My eyes landed on a voicemail transcript from Mom. "I can't believe you do this to us. You've always been jealous. This was Mark's moment, and you stole it because you can't stand not being the center of attention. That one made me laugh. Let it go, I said to Trisha, returning to the call. You don't know how many years I've let it go. I let it go every birthday they forgot. Every Christmas they gave me socks and handed Mark the keys to a new car. I let it go when they asked me to co-sign loans, pay bills, babysit their messes, and then left me off family photos. They raised me like a spare tire and got mad when I finally rolled away. She didn't say anything after that. I hung up. By now, social media was catching fire. A few guests had posted confused updates about being locked out of the venue. One even filmed Natalie screaming through the iron gate while her makeup artist hovered behind her, useless. She was in her dress already, white lace, sparkly veil, all of it, and I had to hand it to her. She looked stunning, but the fury on her face? It was cinematic. Her voice, sharp and screechy, echoed through the video as she shrieked at some poor estate worker, "My wedding is in there. My family is in there. Do you even know who I am?" Oh, I knew. And the best part? So did the internet now. Within hours, TikTok got a hold of it. Someone set the video to dramatic classical music. The caption read, "When you forget to actually book the venue." The comments were brutal. "This is why you treat your siblings right. Manifestation can't override lease agreements, sis." Plot twist, the brother owns the mansion. I don't know who leaked the backstory, probably someone from my cousin's circle who pieced it together. But soon, the full narrative was online. I had paid the deposit. I had leased the venue. I had been uninvited. And I had taken it back without a single raised voice. A local gossip blog even ran the headline, "Brother of the Year or Petty King? Man shuts down wedding after getting banned from photos." As for the actual wedding, they scrambled for alternatives, but there was no backup venue. Nothing remotely close. Guests who'd flown in from out of state were stuck awkwardly standing in hotel lobbies or waiting outside the estate gates with confused expressions. Some ended up going home. Others crashed at the hotel bar and got drunk by 3 p.m. Mark and Natalie eventually tried to hold a ceremony in the back garden of her parents' house, with folding chairs and a boombox playing violin music through a phone. But by then, half the guests had disappeared, and the photographer left because this wasn't the event she signed up for. I watched it all unfold from the balcony of the mansion, glass of rose in hand, surrounded by the same friends who'd once helped me move into a crummy apartment when my parents told me I needed to learn how to survive without handouts. We toasted, not to revenge, to peace, to closure, to finally being done with pretending I was okay with being invisible. But I wasn't quite finished, because there was still one final piece I needed to put in place before I walked away for good. I spent the rest of that weekend in complete tranquility, something I hadn't felt in years around my family. No passive-aggressive comments. No being used for favors. Just the sound of laughter from real friends and the quiet satisfaction of finally standing up for myself. It wasn't about burning bridges. It was about walking away from bridges that were built with gasoline and a box of matches in my hand since birth. Sunday evening, as we packed up to leave the estate, I sat alone for a moment in the garden where Natalie had planned to exchange vows. The art she wanted, the one covered in cascading white roses, never arrived. Instead, the soft pinks and purples of sunset painted the ivy-covered walls with more grace than any florist could have achieved. I took one last photo of the view and sent it to myself with the caption, "This is what freedom looks like." By Monday morning, the fallout had reached a new level. I woke up to an email from Natalie's father's law firm. It was a thinly veiled threat masked as a formal request for damages, claiming emotional distress, financial loss, and reputational harm. I read through the PDF with a cup of coffee in one hand and a smirk tugging at the corner of my mouth. The thing is, I was smart. I had the contract, the lease in my name, every invoice tied directly to me. I never once said I was leasing it for them. In fact, I had emails from Mark thanking me for helping out for now, but never anything legal. The catering deposit? Never paid back, and I'd kept all those text messages. So I forwarded everything to my own lawyer, a close friend who owed me a favor from college. He reviewed the threat and replied with 2 words, "Let them." And so I did. I didn't respond to their lawyer. I didn't flinch when my mother left a 3-minute voicemail sobbing about how I'd destroyed the most important day of her life. She never once asked how my weekend went. She never once said sorry. Just more of the same, blame, projection, martyrdom. Mark tried one last time. He called me late at night, voice hoarse. "You made your point," he said. "You win. Are you happy now?" I let the silence sit. "No, Mark," I finally said. "I'm not happy. I'm just done." Done trying to make myself small so you can feel big. Done pretending that being treated like a footnote is normal. You were never a footnote. I laughed softly. Then maybe you should read your family's story again. He went quiet, then said, they'll never forgive you. I'm not looking for forgiveness, I replied. I'm looking for peace. Then I hung up. And that was the last time I spoke to my brother. For weeks after, I kept hearing bits and pieces through the grapevine. Apparently, Natalie's meltdown at the gate went viral. Someone uploaded a follow-up video titled, When the Wedding Venue Was Never Yours, the sequel. Memes exploded across TikTok and Twitter. One had her screaming with the caption, POV, you treated your fiancé's brother like garbage, and he owned the castle. At some point, they tried to spin it. Natalie posted an Instagram carousel of pictures from their backyard ceremony. The caption read, not everything goes to plan, but love always wins. Hashtag intimate moments. Hashtag blessed. The comments were savage. Love wins, but the mansion didn't. Imagine thinking your vibes overrule contracts. Someone tagged the brother. We owe him a drink. My favorite comment of all was, never disrespect the guy who handles logistics. After that, I did something I probably should have done years ago. I blocked every family member who'd stood by silently while I was being humiliated. Not just for the wedding, but for years. The ones who watched me be used, dismissed, excluded. The ones who only remembered my number when something broke or needed funding. And I changed my number. Then I got to work on building my new life. I moved out of the city, not far, just enough to breathe differently. I landed a job at a boutique consulting firm that valued me for my mind, not my willingness to stay late or cover for someone else. I found a quiet apartment with tall windows and a landlord who left me alone. I started hosting dinners with the friends who came to the estate that weekend, the people who knew the whole story and never once made me feel like I was overreacting. I cooked for them. We played board games. We laughed. It was simple. It was honest. It was mine. But the true ending came about 6 months later. I was walking through a farmer's market when I spotted my cousin Sam. He jogged over, grinning sheepishly. Hey, man. Wow, long time. We talked for a bit, surface-level stuff. Jobs, life, the weather. Then he paused and said, you know, you kind of became a legend. I raised an eyebrow. How so? Everyone still talks about what you did, he said. Even the ones who pretend they don't. Aunt Clara said it was cruel and calculated, but Uncle Dave thinks it was the most dignified takedown he's ever seen. Half the family's secretly on your side. I just nodded. Then he said something that stuck with me. It's like, you gave the rest of us permission to stop pretending. After you cut them off, 3 other cousins stopped funding their parents too. There was this ripple effect. That surprised me. People noticed? I asked. Dude, he laughed. You were the cautionary tale and the hero of the story. All at once. I smiled, but only for a moment. Because here's the truth. I didn't do it for validation. I didn't do it to be a legend. I did it because I was tired of shrinking into someone else's shadow. Tired of being the dependable background character in a family who saw me as disposable until I proved otherwise. I did it because sometimes, the only way to reclaim your worth is to take it back one brick at a time, even if that means tearing down the fantasy they build on your back. And when the dust settles, you don't beg to be let back in. You walk away quietly, peacefully, and build something better. Something real. Something yours.